Very good morning, friends. Today we are going to consider the process of scientific research. It means that what are the stages followed in the scientific research? What are the steps we have to follow in the scientific research? All such things we have to consider here in detail. Okay? The research activity, try to understand. The research activity can be viewed as a process. Try to understand. Research activity can be viewed as a process consisting of a series of stages or series of steps that often overlap rather than following a particular sequence. A researcher should be aware of these stages for the smooth conduct of his research. Try to understand. He should be aware about all these stages for the smooth conduct of his research activity. The major steps in research processes are the following. What are the major steps in research process? These are the major steps in research process. In this chart also I have mentioned here the different types of the process, different types of the processes are there, different types of the stages are there which are followed at the time of the research process. Now what is the first step of this research process? The first step of research process is formulation of research problem. Formulation of the research problem. At the beginning, the researcher should find out the problem in the area of his interest which he want to investigate. It is often more difficult to identify and formulate a problem of investigation than it to solve it. Okay? The difficulty is not that there is a shortage of researchable problem in that. Okay? There is a shortage of researchable problem in that, but the difficulty is there in the behavioral sciences. The issue is of formulating research questions. The issue is that what is issue? The formulation of research questions that meet the generally acceptable or generally accepted criteria. The researcher has to put a great deal of thoughts into formulation of the problem if he expects to get anything worthwhile out of the efforts to solve it. The problem well defined is half solved. You have to find out the problem first and you have to define the problem clearly. Formulating the problem involves the following three components. When you are going to formulate the problem, at that time following three components you should have to understand. First component is there, understanding the problem thoroughly. You have to understand that problem thoroughly, that is what exactly one want to know. Okay, this is the first. Second step, you have to understand knowing the rationale of problem. After understanding the problem thoroughly, you should have to know the rationale of the problem. Okay, it means that why one want to have a particular question answered. What is the theoretical or practical worth of the research? Such things you should have to know. It means that you should have to understand the rationale of problem. Okay, then third step you have to understand in this first, that is specifying the question. That is the principal research problem is rephrased into meaningful terms and sharp questions pointing out towards the class of variable related to the problem and guiding the research process. That's why these three points you have to understand. These three components you should have to understand when you are going to formulate the research problem. What are those three components? First, understanding the problem thoroughly. Second, knowing the rationale of problem. And third, specifying the questions. These three components you should have to know. Then, for formulating the research problem, the researcher may adopt the following ways. What are the ways for formulating the research problem? There are different types of the ways for formulating the research problem. First is there a careful study of relevant literature of the conceptual clarity and review of empirical studies made earlier in the same area. You should have to carefully study you should have to complete the careful study of relevant literature. Then second is there a systematic immersion in the subject matter through first-hand observation. And the third, discussion with persons having rich practical experience in the field of the study. And the last, conclusion with research guide. It means that these four stages, these four ways you should have to adopt when you are going to formulate the research problem. Okay? A business or government organizations, try to understand, a business or government organizations, the research problem is assigned for investigation by higher authorities. As he pointed out by Professor W.A., the statement of problem and objectives are of basic important because the statement of the problem and objectives are of basic importance because it determines the data which are to be collected, the characteristics of the data which are relevant, relations which are to be explored, the choice of technique to be used in their exploration, and forms of final reports. It means that first stage you have to understand with the help of all this information, you should have to formulate the research problem. And this is the first stage. And when you are going to formulate the research problem, these three components you should have to understand. And also you should have to adopt these four ways. Okay. Now, second stage is there, stating the objectives. After proper identification of and clear statement of the problem, after proper identification and clear statement of the problem, the researcher has to specify the objectives of his studies. It means that second stage of a research process is stating the objectives. Try to understand. What is it? Stating the objectives. The objectives are generally stated into 2 to 5 statements, which are in the line with the theme of the investigation. For example, title of the research. The title should be clear. Then objectives of the studies. Those objectives should be clear. It means that such type of objectives you should have to prepare. This is the second stage of the process of the research. Okay. What is the second stage? Stating the objectives. Then next stage is there, review of literature. After a clear formulation of the problem, my friends, try to understand, after a clear formulation of the research problem, researcher has to conduct an extensive survey of the available literature. He has to conduct the survey of available literature related to the problems under investigation. For this purpose, he has to go through books, journal, conference proceedings, periodicals, newspapers, government reports of the international bodies, published and unpublished bibliographies, etc. He can even secure large number of the references within and outside the India through internet. Abstracting and indexing of the relevant information from all these sources will enable the researcher in preparing the gist of the past work concerning his topic of the research. The purpose of such review of literature is twofold. What is the purpose of review of literature? That purpose is having two folds. First, to enable the researcher trace the issues not studied through the earlier researcher and to avoid duplication of the past research. And the second, to specify the objectives of the proposed research. The researcher has to present the review of literature in his report in gist form. While doing so, he may group the references in the order of objectives and in two broad categories as under. First, the literature relating to the theoretical framework of the current research. And the second, the empirical literature of similar studies carried out earlier. Okay? A good library will help. Good library will be the great help to the researcher at this stage. It means that with the help of the library also, such type of a review of literature procedure we can complete. Then next step of the scientific research process is that formulation of hypothesis. You have to understand the meaning of hypothesis also. You have to understand how to formulate the hypothesis also. The suggested explanation or solution of research problem is called hypothesis. The suggested explanation or solution to the research problem is called hypothesis. This tentative explanation may be solution to the problem. Try to understand. The research work is directed. The research work is directed towards finding out whether they rely constitution and solution. Okay. Research may begin with clearly formulated hypothesis. Research may begin with clearly formulated hypothesis, or it may end up with formulating hypothesis. The first kind of research is known as hypothesis testing and the second as a exploratory or formulative research. The formulation of working hypothesis is an important step in good research. Try to understand. The hypothesis guides the researcher by delimiting the areas of research and keeps him on the right path. It sharpens his thinking and focuses his attention on more important facts of the problems. Try to understand. It means that with the help of the hypothesis, this is possible. It also indicates the types and qualities of data required and methods of analysis to be used. Okay? The working hypothesis may be formulated by using the following approaches. There are different types of the approaches. With the help of those approaches, working hypothesis may be formulated. What are those approaches? First approach is there, examination of past data and record. Second, discussion with colleagues and experts in the area of problems. Third, review of similar study in the area of research problem. Next, exploratory personnel investigation of researcher. Okay, that is pilot study. A good researcher or a good hypothesis should be specific and conceptually clear. It should be capable of empirical test and it affirmative form. It should be related to the theory and should also have available techniques of the testing. Try to understand these four stages also you have to understand. These four approaches you have to understand when you are going to formulate the hypothesis. And this is the fourth stage in the scientific research process. Okay. Then next stage we have to understand the preparing the research design. Try to understand. Preparing the research design. After formulating the research problem in the clear terms, researcher has to prepare research design. Try to understand. After formulating the research problem in clear terms, the researcher has to prepare a research design. A research design is a plan of comprising the researcher's decision about the procedures, sampling, collection, and analysis of the data for a given study. It aims to fulfill the purposes of the study without waste of time, energy, and money. It is a blueprint. Research design is nothing but a blueprint of research work to be undertaken by the researcher. Designing the research ensures against its failure. It proves economical in the long run because it avoids the possibilities of fruitless inquiries. Research design differs according to the research purposes, that is exploration, description, diagnosis, and experimentation. Research design requirements vary for different types of the studies. It means that such type of a research design requirements are differ from each other. For example, the studies whose purpose is exploration requires flexible research design, whereas those aiming at a descriptive and diagnostic requires a more rigid design. Through designing the research, the investigator ensures that he will most probably achieve his research he will most probably achieve his research objectives with reasonable time, reasonable money, and reasonable efforts. All these things are essential for preparation of the research design. Try to understand. Then next stage or next step in the scientific research process, that is, what is it? Determining sample design. You have to determine the sample design also. It means that from the total population, you have to select particular sample. That's why you have to determine the sample design. Try to understand. If in our investigation we study each and every unit of the population or universe, the method of investigation is called census method. If we are going to study each and every unit of the population, at that time we can say what type of a sample is there, what type of method is there, census method we are going to follow. On the other hand, if in our investigation we do not study each and every unit of the population or universe, but instead study only a few items drawn scientifically from population, few items we drawn scientifically from the population, the method of investigation is called sampling method. Okay, try to understand. In majority of investigation, in majority of investigations, sampling method is followed as it saves time, money, and efforts, and at the same time it gives more accurate results by enabling in-depth investigation. Sampling design constitutes the following. First, definition of universe of the study. Second, determining the sample size. And the third, deciding the method of sampling or sample procedure. In simple word, a sample design is a definite plan determined before any data are actually collected for obtaining a sample for a given population. That's why this step you have to understand what is it, determining the sample design, and that sample design you should have to determine carefully. Then next step in scientific research process is there, collection of data. What is it? Collection of data. After preparing research design, friends, try to understand, after preparing research design and sample design, the researcher has to proceed to gather of the information relevant to the subject matter of the study from the unit under investigation. The method of collection of the data. The method of collection of data depends mainly upon the nature, purpose, and scope of the inquiry. Try to understand. On the one hand, and the availability of the resources and time on the other hand. Statistical data may be classified into primary and secondary. Try to understand. Statistical data may be classified into primary and secondary data depending upon the nature of data and mode of collection. Try to understand. It means that data can be collected through two ways. First, primary, and second, secondary. Primary data are original observations. Try to understand. What is the meaning of primary data? Primary data are original observations collected by the researcher or his agent for the first time for any investigation and used by them in the statistical analysis, whereas secondary data refers to the data available in the published and unpublished form, already collected by someone for other agencies to be used for the investigation. Use of secondary data in an investigation saves time, finance, labor. However, it should be reliable and suitable to the needs of the investigation. Following are the methods of collecting the primary data. What are the different methods? First, by observation, you can collect primary data. By personal interview, by telephonic interview, by mailing questionnaire, through schedules, such type of a primary data you can collect. The sources of secondary data are government publications, publications of banks, financial institutions and research institutions, newspapers and periodicals. Publications of international bodies like IMF, UNO, WTO, World Bank, etc. It means that with the help of all these sources, we can collect the data which is required for our research purpose. Then next step is there in our scientific research. What is it? Compilation and tabulation of data. After collection of the reliable data, friends, try to understand, after collection and reliable data, after collection of reliable data from the proper sources by using the appropriate methods, the researcher has to scrutinize that data and bring the basic facts in the final form of the order in order to facilitate further analysis. Then the data should be edited for consistency, uniformity, completeness and accuracy. Okay, it means that the data should be consistent, that data should be uniform, that data should be complete and should be accurate. Finally, it has to be properly coded, classified and tabulated in rows and columns. This leads to orderly and systematic representation of the data in suitable form with a view to draw some meaningful conclusions. It means that whatever may be data is collected by researcher, it should be classified, it should be coded, it should be tabulated and it should be interpreted, okay, in correct manner. Thus, such type of data leads to orderly and systematic presentation of the data in suitable form with view to draw some meaningful conclusions. It also enables the researcher to understand the nature of data and trends observed valued. Even the same information can be presented in the form of graphs, charts and diagrams to make the information more meaningful and attractive. It means that with the help of the graph, chart and diagrams also, we can make more effective presentation, more meaningful and attractive presentation also. Then classified and compiled facts speak themselves. A careful and systematic compilation and tabulation will highlight important characteristics of the data, facilitate comparison and render it suitable for further statistical analysis and interpretation. In this way, compilation and tabulation of the data, this is the next stage in the scientific research process. Now, further stage is there, analysis of the data. After the data have been compiled and tabulated, the research proceeds or the researcher proceeds to analyze the data. As pointed out by the Professor Wilkinson, analysis of the data involves a number of closely related operations that are performed with the purpose of summarizing the collected data. Try to understand. And organizing these in such a manner that they will be yield answer to the research questions or suggested hypotheses or questions. If no such hypotheses or questions had been made at the beginning of the study, during the course of the analysis, statistical inferences are drawn by the use of statistical measures such as average, ratios, percentage, dispersion, correlation, regression, and various tests of this significance. Analysis of the data is the most skilled task. Don't forget at all. Analysis of the data is most skilled task of all the stages of research. It is a task calling for the researcher's own judgment and skill. Proper analysis requires familiarity with the background of the investigation and with all its stages. The analysis does not necessarily be statistical one. In the recent year, the computer facility is used significantly in the task of analysis of the data. It means that for analysis of the data, computer facility can be used. Okay, and this is the stage of analysis of data. Now next stage we have to understand testing of hypothesis. After analyzing the data, the researcher is in a position to test the hypothesis. If any formulated hypothesis is earlier, he has to verify whether the results of the analysis support to the hypothesis or they reject it. The various statistical tests such as a Z-test, T-test, chi-square test has been evolved by statistician for testing the hypothesis. These different types of the tests can be used for testing the hypothesis. These tests have to be applied for the hypothesis to check their validity. Hypothesis testing will result in either accepting the hypothesis or in rejecting the hypothesis. If the researcher has no hypothesis to start with, the generalization established on the basis of the data may be stated as a hypothesis. In this way, testing of the hypothesis or generalization of the hypothesis is also you have to understand. Then next stage is there in the scientific research process, generalization and interpretation of the data. Interpretation means what? Interpretation of data refers to the important part of the investigation, which is associated with the drawing of inferences from the collected facts after the analytical study. If the hypothesis is tested and upheld several times, the researcher can arrive at a generalization, that is, to build a theory. The real value of research lies in its ability, try to understand, the real value of the research lies in its ability to arrive concentrate generalization. If the researcher had no hypothesis to start with, he might seek to explain his findings on the basis of some theories. It is known as interpretation. Many times, the process of interpretation may raise new questions, which in turn may lead to the further research. It means that such type of interpretation of the data is also the important aspect of the scientific research. And the next stage we have to understand report writing. This is the final stage in the scientific research. What is it? Report writing. The final and most crucial phase of the research process is to prepare the report of the activities performed during the research. It means that different types of the activities researcher had performed and those activities should be mentioned in the research and in the research report. Research report is called dissertation or thesis. The research work is not complete till such report is prepared. The report communicates the procedure and findings of the research to the audience. It should enlighten the readers on the following points. First, the problem of the research. Next, the research procedure, the result of the findings, the theoretical and practical implications of the findings. And then you have to write the project report. You have to write the research report. You have to write the dissertation or thesis. While writing the report, it should be done with great care, keeping in the view that following. When you are going to prepare the research report, certain amount of the care you should have to take. What is it? First, report should be written effectively. Try to understand. Report should be written effectively by using the principles of communication. What are the principles of the communication? There are different types of the principles. For example, clarity, correctness, conciseness, completeness, courtesy, conscientiousness, credibility, and other consideration. It means that such type of principles you should have to understand. Then second stage you have to understand when you are going to write the report, that is effective use of charts, graphs and diagrams. Representation should be made wherever possible to recover, wherever possible to convey, wherever possible to explain the information more clearly and forcefully. For that purpose also, such type of diagrams are essential, graphs are essential, charts are essential, and with the help of all these, you can communicate effective information. Okay? Then various constraints experienced in the conducting the research may be mentioned. And the last thing we have to understand, the layout of report should be prepared. You have to prepare the layout of the report when you are going to prepare the report. Okay, that layout include the different points. First point is also included in that layout is preliminary pages. Those pages containing cover, title page, letter of transmission, preface, acknowledgement, table of contents, list of tables, list of graphs and charts and abstract or summary. All these things are included in primary pages, okay, or preliminary pages. Then second stage you have to understand in the layout, that is the text of report. Text of report containing the following parts. First part, introduction. In that introduction, you should have to contain statement of research problem, hypothesis, objectives of study, methodology, scope of study, limitations, and scheme of chapterization. All these things are included in introduction. Then second thing you have to understand, main report. It is the core aspect of the report. Don't forget it all. It is systematically presents the facts collected by the researcher under suitable heading and subheading in a logical sequence along with the analytical comments, if any. It may even include visual aids like graphs and diagrams, etc., and even the excerpts try to understand from published information. And also it includes conclusion. At the end of the research analysis, findings of the research are presented in the form of conclusion. The conclusions should be drawn objectively, try to understand, and stated clearly and concisely in their descending order of the importance. It means that such type of a descending order you should have to follow when you are going to draw the conclusions. And the next step is there, that is the last stage, addenda or back matters. The last part of the report contains the appendices, list of the references, bibliography and glossary, index of the subject, etc. All these things are included in the addenda or back matter. In this way, these are 12 stages. These are 12 steps. These are 12 steps followed in research process, okay, and those steps you should have to understand clearly, because oftenly question will be asked in exam and question is asked on such type of a topic, what is it, steps in scientific research process. Okay, that's why my friends, try to understand in detail, and if any query will be there, you can contact me and ask me. Definitely I will try to solve it. Okay, thank you very much.